Hello, this is Simon from Jolly Fuckers. You're listening to the Punks in Pubs podcast. Thanks for the tongue twister there, Liam. Anyway, here's a recent song of ours, Secret Pentagon Leaker, and if you like it, you can find us on Bandcamp, Spotify, and all those other lovely places. Enjoy the show. Cheers.
We do not fear you. We are not afraid of what you have to say, but you fear us. You fear the truth.
How you doing? You well? Good. This is the Punks in Pubs podcast. My name is Liam Bird. I thought I'd get all the hellos. How you doing out of the way? And this, guys, very quickly off the bat, is the last episode of this season. Normally, I have a break over the summer. I'll go and do some festivals. I fill up with some interviews. And yeah, that didn't happen. COVID said no. So I've decided to continue to do the podcast throughout the summer. And I'm going to take September and October off. But we will be back towards the end of October. And you never know, we might be able to do some interviews in some pubs. I don't bet on it, but you never know. Obviously at a social distancing, of course. But while we're away, you can still support and get your Punks in Pubs fix by picking yourself up some Punks in Pubs t-shirts. All ethically sourced, made from organic cotton, and I deliver globally. Well, not me, obviously, some other person, but they'll deliver to your door, so that's nice. Also, you get a free sticker because I like to treat you right. Head on over to our Etsy page and support this DIY podcast. You can find it by searching Punks in Pubs podcast Etsy into Google and you will see the link. Just click on that, or you can search this episode description. There'll be a link in that. Just click that, and again, wallop, you will see the t-shirts. Like I said, this is the last episode of the season, and we're going out with a bang because episode 63 sees me cross off a dream interview name from my list. Episode 63 is me speaking to FC St. Pauli. For you who might be unfamiliar with FC St. Pauli, they are a German football club who has deep roots within the punk subculture. And I mean, fuck, this club's foundations are built on the punk ethos. For me, I'm a huge football fan. So this is a dream interview for me. If already you're like, I fucking hate sport, stick with it. And I mean that. This is an interesting chat about how punk has the range to be able to essentially change a club's ethos by bringing in people with the same ideology, the same like-mindedness, and they managed to change a football club around in a period of 10 years. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let me just explain a little bit more about the club. So FC St. Pauli play in the German second division. Pre-COVID, they were pulling in crowds of nearly 30,000 fans for their home games. My original plan was actually to go over to Hamburg, that's where they're based in Germany, and go and watch a game and then speak to a club rep about the history of the club and its links with punk rock. Sadly, like most things COVID, they said fuck you, and it didn't happen. So I continued to bug the club because I really wanted to do an interview. After a little while, they said, Liam, shut the fuck up, we got the right person for you. That person is my guest for today's podcast. His name is Sven Brux, and you are about to discover he is punk as fuck. So we talk about his background in punk, we talk about the history of the club St. Pauli, and it's just a really interesting interview in my opinion, but I hope you also find it enjoyable as well. Off the bat, I apologise to any St. Pauli fans. Throughout the interview, I don't know why, I just kept referencing the club as FC Pauli and dropping the Saint. I don't know if that's sacrilege. I don't know if I'm now on a blacklist for this club. I hope to get over there soon, so please let me come and watch a game of football. But apologies for dropping the Saint. The real name is FC St. Pauli, not FC Pauli, as I kept saying. I'm waffling. I'll be back after our chat to wrap things up, but without any further delay, enjoy my chat with Sven. As everything, I'm staring down my laptop. We can't be in a pub, we can't be face to face, but I'm very happy to say that I have a gentleman who works at a football club, which I believe people would probably perceive as probably the most punk football club in the world, FC St. Pauli. His name is Sven. Sven, how are you, mate?
Yeah, everything is fine. Hello.
So we're going to talk about your own background in punk, because the club kind of put you forward to be the person to speak to me about punk and the football club's history itself, which I know you've played a big part in. But what would be great is for people to kind of get an understanding of what your role is at the club first.
I have started in 1989 as the first, it's called today, supporters liaison officer. So something who cares about the fans' interests and speaking for them and stuff like that. I built up this project, which is now a big thing with 7-8 people working it. But at this time, I was alone at the beginning. I did this for 8.5 years. And then I did another thing inside the club. And I'm responsible for all the organization stuff around the matches. I'm the official, it's a bad word, but something like security officer. But it's mainly, I'm responsible for security stuff as well. But also for all the organization stuff at a football match with 30,000 people, big position in the club, if you want, like this.
So we're going to talk about the club later on, but what I want to do is talk a little bit about yourself. You were one of the groups, I suppose, that kind of changed the club's ideology. So what I really want to talk about first is growing up. You grew up in Germany at a time when the country was divided. I'm sure there's some young people who are listening to this who never even knew like Germany was east and west. So where did you grow up and what kind of upbringing did you have? Was it kind of like a chilled out, relaxed one, or did you have quite strict parents who didn't allow you to play that kind of heavy music at the time?
yeah, I think it was a quite a normal youth and child time in a suburb from Cologne in the western part of Germany, but it's just 10 minutes by underground to go into the city center of Cologne, stuff like that. In a normal, working class district and a working class family. I can remember the first time I listened to punk rock. We had a partner city in England. It was Leamington Spa. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
That was our partner town, and in our youth club, our youth center, every Saturday we had a disco for teenagers. I was 13, I think, and there was 30 boys and girls from Leamington Spa. And I remember we were sitting and staring at the other group, how it is in this age, bastards and stuff like that. And one of these guys went to the DJ with a yellow vinyl record. You can imagine which record it was. It was a Sex Pistols, never mind the bollocks. But we didn't know. We'd never heard about this. And then they played a song, and these guys was jumping around and stuff like that. What the fuck, and we were smashed with it. And the next week I went to Cologne to the big record shop and bought my first 3 punk albums, and then all the shit starts.
So what year was that then when you heard the Sex Pistols for the first time?
It must be 1980, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, was the age of 14, I think, stuff like that. Yeah.
So what were the 3 albums you bought then?
It was this Never Mind the Bollocks album. It was I think it was Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit stuff, and from a German band called Hansaplast. That was the first 3 records.
So how did you go from Sex Pistols, hearing it for the first time, going to a record store, and all of a sudden you've got Dead Kennedys? Was it talking to the record store guy and going, I've heard this band, who else should I be listening to?
That was a big record supermarket, not a single record shop.
Okay.
I don't remember. Perhaps there was a special thing with punk on it, and I looked through all the records and just decided how the album looked like or stuff like that. I don't remember.
Was you aware of punk at the time? Like, did you even know what it was, or was it Sex Pistols and it was like, what's this music? And then someone went, oh, this is punk.
I don't remember that I heard from punk before. And was not interested in it. But then we collected everything. In a youth club, it was usual that there were magazines to read for everybody. And I remember, and every old punk from this time remember these big articles about punk in Berlin with crazy pictures of crazy people. And, at this time, West Berlin in the 80s, 80, 81, big city, hundreds of squads and riots and everything, and that was the paradise for us on the countryside, far away from Berlin. And not that far away. Then I went there for the first time, I think in 82 or 83.
So how was that experience then, going from the countryside to the big city, whereabouts you knew there were going to be a lot more people with the kind of like same musical taste as you?
As I said, I lived directly near Cologne, which is a 1 million people city as well. So there was a punk scene everybody knows today, which at this time was a very rough punk scene, very working class, a lot of violence and stuff. And we had a lot of trouble with other subcultural groups. In Cologne, it was the Teddy Boys stuff, and the popper, who like these pop music stuff, and with everybody else. So everybody hated us, and it was really dangerous at this time to walk through the streets. And sometimes we got smashed up, and we learned to defend ourselves and stuff like that. So it was good time.
Because I think, especially in that early time, the kind of like the perception of a punk was seen as this person's up to no good, like instantly, no matter how you looked. Do you remember the first time that happened to you though? Like, were you dressed up in mohawk, bondage trousers, ripped shirts, or could you have walked down the street and no one would have known what kind of musical genre you liked? Because no one was stereotyping you in the same way that it probably did with people who did have the mohawks and bondage trousers.
Yeah, he was, in my memory, he was like a public enemy, And if you remember, my hometown is a 50,000 people town, so not a village, but a bit smaller. And my father said to me, well, I don't want to see you on streets. If you walk down the streets, I don't know you. And my other uncle and stuff, they didn't want to have something in common with me. But I gave a shit about it, of course. and we were a small gang of 7, 8 people in this small town who were hanging around in the youth club and on the streets. And yeah, it was like a bit like an adventure to walk on the street with with some loud music with us and drinking beer with 15 and stuff. Yeah, of course. But nothing happened to us in this village. And but in the bigger one in Cologne, something dangerous could happen, of course. Yeah, and it happened.
So, do you remember the first time you went to your first show then and saw kind of the violence that can happen in watching a band, and was that kind of your next step into punk? Because obviously listening to it on record is completely different than going to see it live.
Yeah, I think the first one was in Bonn, our former capital city, which is also in the Cologne area. And it was an open air university festival for free. And the band was called Kanal Terror, which is one of the most famous German bands from this time. And that was my first pogo dancing and stuff like that. We had one older punk in our small village, Detlef, he was called, and he took us with him, and he knew these people in Bonn, so we were not the complete strangers there. But that was my first concert. The nice thing is the former singer of this band, Tommy Molotov, he's called, is now a colleague from me, working for the FC St. Pauli as well for more than 10 years now. Later on, he was the singer of other bands like Molotov Soda, very well known in Germany. And now he's a colleague from me. But that was my first concert. And then it was not that long ago, we organized our first concerts in our youth club in Brühl, which was a very big thing. Imagine there's a small town and there's a concert, and about 100 punks from Cologne and Bonn were arriving with a train and going to the streets, and big scandal and everything. and the first big one was the Undertones in Cologne, in a big venue. And then we had a very big squad, a former factory in the southern part of Cologne. And then from 82 and so on, we were hanging around there every evening. And there were a lot of bands playing Bad Brains, Peter and the Test Tube Babies, and all this stuff.
So were you ever part of the squatter scene then? Did you ever leave home and have a go at kind of living in the squats, or was that not for you?
I have never lived in a squat. I've always had my own flat, whatever. But I was hanging around in them, even in Cologne, in some squats, and have slept there overnight or stuff. And also in Düsseldorf, and later on in Hamburg or in Berlin. So I was in it, yes.
Do you find it unusual that they've seemed to have become quite a tourist attraction now, especially if you go to Berlin? People want to go and see the old kind of punk squats that are going on and see if there's a live show going on there.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of strange things. If you see what people from the past are doing now, especially, for example, in the St. Pauli area where I hang around. For example, one of our guys, one of my oldest friends, Charlie, he opened later on a tattoo shop, tattooing and piercing stuff. And now he's the official and voted and elected speaker of all the businessmen in one part of Hamburg. So he's the representative of them. And also a lot of from these old mates, now they own their own pubs and concert venues and stuff like that. You perhaps you remember in former time you had to ask other people, can I organize a gig in here in your venue? And in the 80s, most of these people were former long hair hippies from the 68 movement, and they had their own pubs and venues, but you had to ask them. But later on, we and our colleagues opened our own business things. And if you know, look around, loads of my former mates are working in the music, I would say music industry. They go on tour with big bands, not only punk bands, also hip hop and other things. And they are a big part of the music scene and live music stuff all over the world. Yeah. And it's, they own restaurants and all these own hostels and stuff. It's crazy, but I think it's a part of normal life. But it's very funny when we sit together and remember the old times with no money and nothing and just hang around. And now, businessman without feeling like a businessman.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. We do this and we pay people and we give work to people and stuff. But it's quite normal, but funny. If you remember these old times with shouting around no future and stuff, and now 35 years later, we are our own future.
God save the Queen, the fascist regime, it made you a moron, potential hate bomb. God save the Queen, she ain't no human being.
I've kind of spoke about this off mic. Like, we're going to talk about football, and for me, football's a huge part of my life. It's probably second to punk music of my love. And I grew up in Nottingham, so I took my local team as my club. Were you at any point a Cologne fan?
Yeah, sure. I was as every kid in my area, I was a fan from FC Cologne in my childhood, and I never forget when we won the Double, so Cup and Championship in '78. I went with my father to the team, and nice thing is they won this championship in '78 with a 5-0 away win at St. Pauli, when St. Pauli was 1 year in the Bundesliga, first Bundesliga in '78. That was a nice time, but later on, when all this punk thing came, I started to think about political things, and then I recognized what a bunch of assholes was standing around me in the stadium. Loads of Nazis singing songs against Jews and blacks and whatever. When you are 13 or 14, you don't ask about it. Everything is normal. But when we started going around dressed like punk rockers, we got some trouble in there. So I know a lot of others stopped going to football because it was too dangerous. It was full of Nazis and hooligans.
How did you end up in Hamburg then? Because you were saying you were living in Cologne and then Berlin for a little while, and then
at this time we had to go. Every young man had to go to the army for 1.5, 2 years, or you decide I don't go to the army, and then you had to do this civil service. And normally it's in hospitals and with old people and stuff like that. And I decided to go to Hamburg, and I worked for 20 months in a sailor's home, which is organized by the church, but it was like a hotel for sailors with 140 beds in the St. Pauli area. Yeah, and I went there with my red spikes, hair and stuff, and I worked with the sailors, which is very close to the football fans, because the sailors, the seamen, are inside their heart, in my experience, a very conservative thinking too. And when they were all hanging around in the entrance area of this sailors' home drinking beer, and they saw me, it was strange. And until my first single night shift when I had a fight with another guy, and then they said, you're a good guy, you are a good fighter, a good man. So that
you had to
yeah,
prove
but
your
you
worth.
know, it is like it is. They were thinking before, I think, what a crazy arsehole is this? Look at this hair and stuff. And then a drunken guy started some trouble with me, and I kicked him, and then everything was fine.
So during that time, then, when you were working with the sailors, were you also still putting on punk shows in Hamburg? Was that something you were still trying to do at the
Yeah,
same
sure.
time?
And that was one of the main reasons to go to Hamburg, because this civil service thing meant if you found a job in another city, they pay for it. They paid the government paid for your old flat in your hometown, and gave you a free train ticket to the town you worked, and then you had your own private flat over there. So it was a very good chance to go to another city for a while, for 1.5, 2 years, and then they'll go back without any loss. In my case, I finished my work here and stayed in Hamburg and didn't go back. And of course, one of the reasons was that Hamburg had a great punk rock scene with a lot of gigs and squads and everything. So it was very interesting for me to go.
So when you were going to shows, then, were people talking about football at shows?
Of course, at this time it was most the other Hamburg club, which was very big and successful, and St. Pauli was very small at this time. But in the middle of the 80s, St. Pauli was growing, and the average crowd went up from about 3,000, 4,000 up to 20,000 with a promotion in the Bundesliga in 1988. It was like we were hanging around in a pub one evening, and someone told me from my friends, yeah, tomorrow, do you want to come with us to football? I said, what? To football? What football? Yeah, he said, yeah, we go to St. Pauli tomorrow on a Sunday afternoon. I said, what? To St. Pauli football? Isn't it dangerous? No, it's cool over there. And then I went there the next day. Yeah, and it was cool. Yeah, and there was a small bunch of people from the squatters and punk scene, not behind the goals. It was on the sideline terracing. There was in the middle, the meeting point of us. At this time, it was 30, 40, 50 people, not more. But that was the beginning. And yeah, it was peaceful, no violence, no right-wing stuff against us at this moment. Later on, we got some trouble, but at this Sunday afternoon, it was very nice. And for me, it was, great. There's a stadium I can watch football, and my forgotten love football was newborn.
Sull'orlo di una strada, una gara di follia contro il sipario amaro della xenofobia. Canti d'agonismo, di emozioni da spartir, di cori lastricati, di coscienza e d'avvenir. Danzano sulla storia di giorni conquistati, figli della memoria, pirati a San Paoli. Danzano sulla gloria di giorni conquistati, figli della memoria, banditi a San Paoli.
People who might not know, in the 80s in the UK in particular, football fans were seen publicly by the public and also by government in the UK as racist, homophobic fucks. From what I understand, from what I'm hearing from you, that was kind of the same what was going on in Germany. How did it then become that this group of 50 punks kind of set its roots in changing the ideology of a club that already had 10, 15,000 supporters going to see it week in, week out? I mean, how do you even start to do that?
There was no plan to act like this. So we didn't stick together and say, okay, we go into a stadium and in 2 years we have changed this club and we blah, blah, blah. No, that wasn't. It was just a thing for Sunday afternoon, second division football, drinking beer, smoking marijuana, and have a good time. But then the club had plans to build a new stadium. It was called Sports Dome, and it was like one of these new stadia with all-seater stadium with a hotel in it and congress, blah, blah stuff. And of course, we were against these plans because, we love terraces and all this stuff. And also the neighborhood, which was not 100% into football, they were against these plans too, because they were fearing rising rents for their homes and other tourist shit and stuff like that. So we founded a protest group, an activity group against these plans. And because we came from the political scene, from the squatter scene and anti-fascist scene, we knew about how to write leaflets and how to organize a discussion evening, and all this shit was our normal life. And we made the first leaflet at the stadium, and also these more right-wing or conservative or just normal people said, oh, hey, these crazy-looking guys from the Hafenstraße squad, which was a big symbol for violence at this time, they are looking crazy, but hey, they are on the right side, and they are fighting for my interest as a football supporter as well. And so we got more and more contacts into the normal football supporter scene at the Pauli at this time, and had a big coalition. And that was a fight for 6-7 months with a lot of activities never seen before at football. We made a demonstration which ended before a home match at the stadium with 1,500 people on a Friday afternoon. And then we had another protest activity, a silence protest, beginning with a kickoff whistle of the referee. Everybody should be silent, absolutely silent in the whole stadium, to show how it will be in an all-seater ground. And that was so successful. We said it should be 5 minutes. In reality, it was 3.5, but it was a sensation. And the media, of course, no internet and stuff at this time, but the normal media were full of it. And finally, we won the struggle. The plans for this new stadium were thrown away. The Canadian investors went away, and we won this struggle. And we saw, hey, we have influence. If we want, we have influence what's going here in this stadium. And then from this power, we founded the first fanzine, magazine. It was called The Military Raw, and it was published the first time in July 1989. And so that was our instrument to have more work in all this. And we started activities against racism at football, because there was another thing in 89 in the summer when Nuremberg played at our stadium. We had some monkey noises in the stadium, and we were very angry about it. We didn't get these boys who did this, but we made another leaflet. We went to the club, hey, let's make something against it. And at the next time when there is a club playing at our stadium with a black player, at this time there were not so many black players in Bundesliga. So 2 or 3 months later, another club with a black player came. I think it was Düsseldorf with Anthony Buffo. And we published this leaflet at this time, and it was signed from all players. All players signed this anti-racism leaflet. So that was another big success. Yeah, and we fought for cheaper prices, cheaper tickets for unemployed people. At this time, you got cheaper price when you are a student, or what is it? When you are too old to work. I don't know the word.
Retired.
Yeah. For these people, and if you are in the army, then you got cheaper tickets. And we said, this is bullshit. There are so many unemployed people. It's necessary to give them these cheap tickets also. Yeah, and we won this struggle also, and stuff like that. So we got more and more influence with this magazine. And yeah, the next step then was that I was asked to do this first job as a supporters liaison officer, because the Hamburg fan project was existing only at the other Hamburg club, and they said we must do something at St. Pauli as well. So everything was growing. We opened the first Fanladen, which is like where you can go every day to meet and buy away tickets and some self-produced merchandise and stuff like that. And so we got more and more people, more and more influence, and it was growing.
So how much of a fight then did you have from like the right wing of the group, or possibly the far right wing of the group, like challenging you, seeing that there's this left-wing organization kind of taking over our club, and we don't agree with their progressive movement. I mean, was there a battle going on there?
Most of the left-wing scene today is acting. We started with talking to them. I remember very long away trips, 8 hours by train to Munich and stuff like that. We were hanging around in the train, drinking beer, and had a lot of discussions. When one of these guys was saying, get all these foreigners out, they are stealing my job, or they're stealing my flat or stuff. We said, you are talking bullshit. Who is stealing your job? This is not the Turkish guy from next door. It's the big bosses and the companies, and all these discussions like that. And I think we got a great big number of these people on our side by talking. They said, oh, yeah, you are right. Yeah, I never thought about like this. And I was grown up in another society in Hamburg, blah, blah, blah. But there was still one group who acted like Nazis. They were too stupid to be organized Nazis. They were just a bunch of idiots, but they were abusing foreign people, black people on the street and stuff like that. And we had some trouble with them. But it exploded during the World Championship 1990. I think after the half final or the final, I don't remember. We were attacked in our pub near the Reeperbahn red light district area. I think 300-400, I don't remember, right-wing hooligans were attacking us, and we were just with 30-40 guys in a pub. And we saw some of these St. Pauli fans inside these mob attacking us, together with Hamburg SV fans and other assholes. Nothing serious happened at this evening, but we said, so now that was too much. And 1 week later, they got a visit in their pub, and this group was history after this. So they got hammered, and we said to them, so your time at St. Pauli is over. You can go there, but we never want to hear any single word from you. You are so silent, and if not, we come to your end behind the goal, and you got smashed. And finally, it was a violent answer, yes, but it was at the end, it was necessary and successful. On my team, don't think to run. Two-face get busted both mouths. Backstabbers get shanked out, no doubt. Turn and walk, you lose all clout. Just wanna know what you're about.
Does the other club in Hamburg then, are they perceived then to be quite right, or is it kind of not seen like as left versus right? Are they just seen as just the bigger club who has more corporate power, I suppose? Today or in the past? Today, yeah, I suppose today, because the law of FC Pauli is the fact that you are seen as this left-wing, very actively political club. Yeah. Whereabouts I think you're very unique in that, especially in the UK. Football clubs do not get political at all, which I think is a shame. But in Germany, do you have politics all the time in football? Is that, again, unique just to your club? I think St. Pauli was the first club to act like this. And I remember all these discussions, even at the Football Association in Frankfurt, at big meetings. You are bringing the politics into football. That was the normal abuse to us. You are destroying the sport with bringing politics into football. We said, oh, fuck off, The fucking Nazis has been in football before us, and you didn't do anything. They were waving their fucking swastika flags and everything. Wasn't that political, you bastards, And so it was easy to argue against it, But also St. Pauli as a club realized, we have to act because we have a
we have something to do with our neighborhood. And when our neighborhood has some problems, we have to be on their side. We are not isolated as a football club. We are part of society, and we are responsible for the surrounding society. And in the first years, of course, also the football association or other clubs said, you are crazy with your politics. But then they saw how successful it was also for the club, not only for the political thing, also for the club to be seen as a club which is, I'm responsible for my society, and I will act, and I'm in solidarity with homeless people, with whatever. And then more and more clubs did the same things, not that much as St. Pauli until now. But all the clubs nowadays, they have their social, what is it called, corporate social responsibility stuff, and doing things like that. In the past, in Hamburg, you could say Hamburg SV is fucking right wing, a lot of bonehead, skinhead stuff, and St. Pauli is left wing. Nowadays, it has changed. There are still Nazis at the Hamburg club, but they are silent. The ultra groups in the end, they are most of them are strictly anti-fascist, and there are some big anti-fascist demonstrations where you see both ultra groups working not side on side but on the same demonstration. So that has changed a lot at the other club. That's very great.
Because I suppose around the world, politically, I see it as like the right and the far right seem to be growing. Their voice seems to be getting stronger. I mean, in Germany, I know you got the AfD seem to be gaining power in local areas. Has that not infiltrated then onto the terraces? And I suppose my question really is then, as FC Pauli kind of go to away games, have you seen an increase in violence towards a club that is actively left-wing, has its politics on its sleeve?
Yeah, sure. Especially when we, as St. Pauli, we have away matches, especially in East Germany, former East Germany. There are some clubs who have a strictly fucking Nazi following. And the clubs over there often, they just say, we are against racism, blah, blah, but the reality is another thing. But nowadays, all these stories are going public very fast. If there's a right-wing following, blah, 1 hour later, you see all these pictures on the internet. That was different in the past. In my young time in the 80s, no internet, nothing. If we got hammered in the East, nobody listened to us. And we said there was no police, or there was police, but they didn't help us and stuff like that when we played in Rostock and Chemnitz and Dresden and all this. But I think the good thing in German football is that the leading groups are the ultra groups today. And that's another kind of football culture. I was grown up with other kind of football culture, but now it's the ultra thing. You can say, I don't like this singer in front of the crowd and singing 90 minutes. You can have your own opinion, but the thing is, most of them are minimum anti-racist. Some of them are strictly left, with left politics. Some are right wings, but most of them from the big clubs like Frankfurt and Bayern Munich and others, they are strong anti-fascist ultra groups. With they are also going on demonstrations and did a lot of social work and stuff like that. I think that has to do something that nowadays a lot of intelligent young people go to football. When I was 14 and when I was growing up in Cologne, I would say most of the people on the terraces were not students, just pure working class. And nothing against these people, but there was not that much intelligence in you know what I mean? Just normal people. And nowadays you have a lot of very intelligent with students leading these ultra groups, and of course, when you have a bunch of intelligent people, they are not that much into fucking racist politics, and I think that has something to do with the change into the football scene. It's not everything brilliant at this time. There are still too many racists and fascists in football, but it's nothing against the 80s. And when there is some riots today with ultras, and the fucking media saying, "Oh, never seen such a riot," we old bastards say, "What? Where have you been in the 80s? You must have seen all these riots around the stadia in the 80s. That is nothing. All this shit, what is happening today, is nothing against the riots of the 80s." But nobody can believe this. You know?
I mean,
you
everyone...
remember the 80s in English football. You know, I have seen this Manchester United and Cologne and stuff. Wow, what crazy guys were coming over just looking for fights and stuff like that. You know?
Well, I mean, the impact of the 80s still plays a part in the UK that we can't even have terraces still because of rioting.
That was your fault. We saw to our English colleagues, you know, we had a lot of contacts with the people from When Saturday Comes and other magazines, and we had talks when English football was threatened with this all-seater grounds. We said, "Hey, you must resist, do something." But I think it's part of English society that big protest was not the thing at this time. And later on, they said to us, "Yeah, you were right. Now the culture is dead." No?
I think it was the fact that we had to push back against what happened in Hillsborough, and because so many people died at Hillsborough, I think people thought, okay, if we have seating, Hillsborough will never happen again. And what eventually came out was it wasn't because of terracing, it was because of bad policing practice. That's why, unfortunately, those people died. And now there's so much more want to have terraces, or safe standing, as it's called in the UK. Yeah. And I think you're correct. I think it's something that takes away the atmosphere from going to a game, especially. I apologize for the people who are listening to this for about punk, especially for the people who go and watch like Arsenal or Man United or these mega clubs who have 80, 90,000 seater stadium. Sometimes you get an atmosphere, but you get a better atmosphere going to a club like Luton Town, who's a small club with 10,000 supporters, but it's a more old-fashioned club. So you kind of get that atmosphere that you kind of get told as a kid is the reason that you go to football. But I suppose actually that kind of leads into the same question though. Man United, Arsenal are seen as kind of tourist clubs. Is there ever a fear, because of how popular your club has become, tourists like myself who might go to a game will change the ideology of what the club is? E.g. also rising prices, because if tourists comes along, they might be willing to pay more for a ticket.
Yes, it is in some points, because it's reality that there's a lot of people coming to our club who wants to see a match and have a nice weekend at St. Pauli. As you know, St. Pauli is not only football, it's a red light district, a lot of alternative music venues, concerts, no curfew in the pubs. When Corona is over, the pubs are open again and you can drink all night long for cheap prices and stuff like that. So it's very interesting for people to have a weekend in Hamburg. But please tell all your friends, we hate this fucking English stag weekends coming over. We hate them. Everybody hates British stag weekends coming over. But we have no rising prices because of the tourists. I think other clubs are jealous. Is this jealous?
Jealous, yeah.
Because we earn a lot of money with merchandising. And of course, the tourists are bringing their money to our merchandising shop and giving us money, which is a good thing for the club, especially when you see that we decided our annual member meeting. You know, German clubs are organized as a members club. So we have 30,000 members, and on the annual meeting, everything's decided. We decided, for example, not the name of the stadium is not for sale. So it's always the Millantor Stadium, like ever before, and it's not called the blah blah Emirates Stadium or whatever. You know, it's not for sale. That means, in fact, we lose 1.5 million euro a year for not selling the name. And before the match, for example, we have no entertainment on the pitch, not before the match and not at halftime, no sponsor paid shit on the pitch at halftime entertainment. We said, no, that has nothing to do with football. We don't want it. The 8 minutes before the kickoff, we have no advertising in the stadium because we decided, let's the fans start their singing and let's get warm for the match. And we don't. You could sell the last minutes before kickoff for high prices to any advertising things, but we decided no, we don't want it. So it's more pure football. And at other stadia, you get these announcements. The next corner is presented by blah blah company. You know, we don't have all this, but that means we lose a lot of money. But on the other hand, we have a lot of money coming with this merchandise stuff. The difference is nobody must buy merchandise. It's your free choice. But if you are as a fan in the stadium, it's not your choice if there's fucking advertising, an entertainment show at halftime. You can't go away. You must listen to this bullshit, you know. So I think it's fair how St. Pauli is acting in this question. But to come back to your question, it's no problem to have these tourists. It's not in that numbers, and the prices are still very cheap.
I can remember the first time I went and watched football in America. I went to go and watch the Colorado Rapids, and there was a throw-in happening. And just like you said, they announced that the throw-in was sponsored by Coca-Cola. And I felt like rioting at that moment in time because they had taken football, something that I love so much, and packaged it and advertised it in such a disgusting way that they decided to sponsor a throwing. I was like, what the fuck is this? Anyway, so talking about merchandise then, because the kind of like the image that is known for your club is the skull and crossbones. And I understand that that's actually, that came about from a drunk punk kind of stealing a flag and bringing it to the football club. Is that correct? And if that's so, could you tell that story?
Yeah, that's a story. You must know at this time there was no merchandising existing. You know, there were in the ticket office there was, I think, one scarf, also with the German colors on it, and one cap and some stickers. That was all. No merchandising existing. And when we opened the fan laden, the fan project, we decided, let's start our own thing, and we produced the first T-shirts and stickers against right-wing stuff. And one of these squatters is called Doc Mabuse, living in a big Hafenstraße squads. Yeah, that's right. After one match, he was on this, is it a fair, like a carnival next to the stadium? It's 3 times a year for 4 weeks. It's directly beside the stadium. He went on there and he got one of these skull and crossbone flags. And next match, he took it with him into the stadium. And then the history starts like at this time, the skull and crossbones flag was the symbol of the squatters movement also, like the poor against the rich, the fight of the poor people against the industry and the rich people. And especially in Hamburg, there is a very famous pirate from the Middle Age called Klaus Störtebeker. And the legend says he robbed the and gave it to the poor, which I think was bullshit, but the legend says like this. But then the symbol became a symbol for St. Pauli as just promoted into First Bundesliga in 1988. Now we are the very small club. You remember, just 4 people working in the club's office at this time, and everything was rotten stadium and everything. And now we play against Hamburg SV, Bayern Munich, and we are like the pirates fighting against all the rich clubs. That was starting that, but there was no marketing company who has founded this idea. It was, from us. we adopted this skull and crossbones symbol as our symbol, and it was all produced in the first years in an independent way, just from supporters for supporters. Later on, the fan project sold the right to produce the skull and crossbones stuff to the club, and the club is still paying money a year to the fan project to have the right to produce this thing. And now everybody knows the skull and crossbone thing is it's like an industry. You know, you can buy in the merchandise shop stuff for the dog and everything in different colors with the skull and crossbones. Of course, it's a merchandising industry nowadays, but the roots are absolutely independent. And it was clear in this first years, if you see anywhere in the world another guy with the skull and crossbones with St. Pauli on it, this must be a fine guy, must be anti-racist and everything. Nowadays, it can happen that you meet a fucking arsehole wearing this club's shirt, you know, because he's just a fucking drunken arsehole, you know. Don't know. Yeah. But the roots were absolutely independent. It was founded by ourselves. That's right.
That image is now used like within punk music, because I know you did a line with Alkaline Trio whereabouts you did kind of like the club and Alkaline Trio merch, and you've also done it with Anti-Flag. And it seems that bands have adopted the football club as well. So you got bands like Asian Dub Foundation, Gaslight Anthems, Turbo Negro. I mean, Bad Religion played a charity match against FC Pauli. It just seems to be that for some reason punk is attracted to the club. Do you understand why that is? Like, is it something that the club purposely tries to market, or is it just something that bands see this club and just want to be part of the cult status of it?
I think that has to do with what I said a couple of minutes before. Loads of musicians and people working in the music business are going to St. Pauli from the 80s when we were young, drunken punks. Now we work in this thing. So, for example, there's one guy, he's going on tour with Bad Religion in Germany, for example. And then they are talking and, you are interested in football? Yeah, I go to St. Pauli. Oh, we have an off day next weekend. Let's visit the club. And it's working like this. So there are loads of context, because I think hundreds of musicians are regular season ticket holder in St. Pauli. So we know each other, and very short way. If you remember when we had our 100-year anniversary 10 years ago, we made a big open air festival in the stadium with Pantheon Rococo from Mexico playing, and the Wakes from Glasgow, and loads of bands which we know they are real fans. They are not in solidarity with the club for marketing reasons. They are with us in their heart because we know them personally and not on a business way, you know. And yeah, so it comes that there's a lot of relationships with bands, and so we do a lot of things which also brings money. Of course, if you produce a T-shirts with blah blah Bad Religion and St. Pauli, you must not buy it. But if anybody wants to buy it and helps the club and the band, yeah, why not? No problem with it.
So how important is it that the club does stick to this kind of punk ideology moving forward? Because we're in a time where perhaps fans can't go to games, so clubs need to get their income some other way. Is there any danger that if this virus continues for 2-3 years, hopefully it doesn't, could the ideology of what the club is about change because it has to survive?
I don't know what the future will bring us, but what I know is that there is an absolutely big solidarity from not only from the fans and the season ticket holders, also from the surrounding society. They helped us in 2003 when we were nearly bankrupt. There has been loads of solidarity activities in the area to help the club, and finally it was successful. We sold 140,000 T-shirts for the club, and we got the money we need at this time. And I'm sure if something serious like this would happen now during this Corona times, things like that would help us more than other clubs, because the solidarity is big like that. And but I'm also sure that we don't need this financial help from the fans. They helped us in the last months of the last season when they said, "Oh no." So the big majority of the people said, "I don't want to my money back from the season ticket." They said, "No, it's okay, get it." You know, and the same right now. We sold also, like every year, our 15,000 season tickets, and the people know that they can't go to the matches for other 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Nobody knows, but nobody is asking for money. And nowadays we are better organized inside the club, so our financial control system is better as in the past. And now we are like a professional organized club. Punk roots, blah blah blah. But it's a normal football club, you know. But the punk ideology inside this club, without people looking like punk rockers, is stay rude and open your mouth and say what you want. Don't be afraid of going into trouble with stronger enemies. You know, our chairman, Oke Göttlich, which is music businessman as well, not with punk rock, with other more electronic stuff, but that's his business background. He's now part of the leading group of the German Football Association. He's elected as one of the leaders. So we are in the heart of the enemy, and Frankfurt was one of our guys, if you want, like this. But St. Pauli will survive this Corona shit, I'm sure.
Well, I hope so, because I hope to get over once this is over. Because it's just one of those clubs on my list of that I want to go and watch. Sven, thank you for talking.
You are invited all the time.
I'll definitely make sure that happens. Sven, thank you for talking to me, pal.
Thank you very much.
Ole, 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 ole,
Thank you so much to Sven for taking the time to chat to me, and thank you to FC St. Pauli for supporting this DIY podcast and offering Sven as an interview. Once this COVID shit is over, I'm 100% going to a game. At the start of the podcast, you would have heard the Jolly Fuckers who sponsored this episode of the podcast. For that, I thank them. Make sure you go check out their work by clicking the link in this episode description, or just give a little Google and I'm sure you'll find them. Like all past sponsors, the Jolly Fuckers didn't pay a single penny to sponsor the podcast. If you are working on a project that is within the punk subculture, that can be music, poetry, zine, clothing, it doesn't matter. You can have a spot at the top of this podcast to sell yourself or whatever it is that you want to sell for free. To do that, just email punksinpubs@gmail.com, and when we start back up in October, you can be at the start of the podcast chatting just like the Jolly Fuckers did. Right, let's wrap this up. Thank you for tuning into this past season of the podcast. I think we've had some excellent guests during a very difficult time. We've gone from going to pubs, interviewing people face to face, over to doing interviews over a laptop, something that at the start of the podcast I didn't want to do. I had so many offers to talk to quite big bands, but they wanted to do it over Skype or now Zoom, and I just tried to get away from it. I don't think you get that kind of connection that you get over a beer talking to the person face to face. So I think we've made the best out of a difficult situation. I hope you've enjoyed the episodes that we provided. If you have enjoyed it, please go slap 5 stars on iTunes review. You don't even need to leave a comment, just put at the stars. It really helps people find the podcast, and then it helps the podcast grow. So over the time we're away, please go do that. It only literally takes a minute, not even that. So go do that, support the podcast. It doesn't cost you anything. Right, I'm out. Black Lives Matter, Trump and Boris don't give a shit about you, and always question authority. Till the end of October, bye-bye.